Chris, you are born in Holland,
Yes.
but you also have generations roots here. Tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, it's true. For many generations, from my mother's side, my my grandparents, my great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, yeah, they come from here, and they have always lived in, and in Jerusalem and in Bethlehem. And it was, I think, about 1.5 years ago, I was walking with my grandfather in Jerusalem, between the old and the new city, and then he showed me around. I filmed everything. He showed me around the house where they used to live and where my great-grandparents used to live, and it's just so there's a connection, a physical connection to this place, and I think that's part of it why I always already felt so home.
How did you meet Jesus?
Well, it was about 12 years ago, and I had a very nice life. I started very young, buying and selling all kind of stuff, and it grew into a business and another business, and I started a modeling agency, and I lived above a discotheque, and my life was one big party in the weekend with all my friends, and I kind of had everything my heart desired. And somehow I noticed I was still missing something, and I didn't know what it was. And so my life continued, and it was all fun, but I was missing something. So one day I visited a famous billionaire. He was in television, and I thought, this guy, he's like God for me. And the moment I left his office, I realized if I would have everything that he has, I'm still missing something. So one day I contacted a friend I knew from the soccer, and he was doing stuff with God, and I didn't know what. I said, what are you doing with this God stuff? And so he invited me, and he said, oh, come to church with me once. I said, yeah, okay, I'll do that. So one day I was partying until 5 o'clock at night, being drunk and the whole thing, doing everything God forbid. Next day I was in church, and I saw all these happy, clappy, hallelujah people, and I found them a little bit weird, but they had something in their eyes, and they had something, and I didn't know what it was. So there was a song, Shout to the Lord. And then I just said in my mind, okay, God, if it's really true that you exist, show me now. And like that from above, he touched my heart.
Answered immediately.
Immediately. And sometimes when I try to explain it, it's difficult to explain. And I started a completely new life. And there's a life, there's a way of living, living your life not knowing that God exists. There's a way of life that you live your life and that you know that God exists. So that switch came for me. So it was a big shock realizing that there's a creator, that there's a God. But then there's also a next level, that is to get to know God. And I didn't know that also existed even after I was touched by God. I only knew that he existed, but the rest I had no idea what the gospel meant or whatever. So then somebody gave me a book from an old Dutch, like a grandmother type woman who traveled the whole world. Her name was Corrie ten Boom. And I saw a picture of this grandmother with 2 suitcases. And I read how this woman apparently traveled the world, and God gave her all these assignments and go there. And she had this amazing adventure. And then I also started to read the Bible, of course, and you read the stories of people from the Bible who have all these kind of adventures. And I just said to God, make my life an adventure. I want the same thing. And at that moment, the moment I asked that question, I had no idea what was waiting for me, because since that moment, in the last 10 years, I traveled, I think the last 7 years, I've been from so many different countries in Europe, America, and the Middle East also. And everywhere I went, something special happened. Yeah.
Jesus was a storyteller when he was walking around on earth.
Yeah.
And now you have many stories to tell about Jesus in your life. Jesus' stories are telling through your life. Tell me about some of the stories.
One of the first things, I think, shortly after I was touched by God, I was standing on the street. This was in the Netherlands. And I was just minding my own business, just standing. And I saw 2 girls, about 14, 15 years old. They were coming my way. And the left one was a gothic girl, everything was black. And as I was standing there, it was as if God spoke into my heart, like into my heart, and said, tell the left girl that I love her. And I said, what? I said out loud, are you crazy? I don't know this girl. I'm not going to tell this strange girl that she will think I'm crazy. but I felt do it. So I thought, okay, and I'm walking towards these girls and I'm thinking they're going to think I'm crazy. So I walk up to them and say, listen, maybe you think I'm crazy, but I was standing there and I think that God told me to tell you that He loves you, He's with you, and He always hears and sees you. At that moment she got the tears in her eyes. She said, my friends don't believe in God, they're doing Satanism. She said, my parents don't believe in God, but 2 days ago I asked in my bedroom, God, if you truly exist, you must give me a sign. At that moment I was in shock, like what happened here? She was also in shock, and from that moment she also believed that God exists. One day I wanted to go to Spain. I wanted to do nothing, just lay on the beach, do nothing, lay like on this air bed, you know, on the water with a book, nothing on my head. And it was really funny because I was in Norway. Somebody asked me, does God always tell you where to go, and do you always listen? And I told him, no, I don't always listen, you know. And so sometimes I say, I'm going there. And so in this time I said, okay, God, I'm going to Spain. Are you going with me or not? I'm going. So I go there. And on one morning I go to the beach. I take my book and my airbed. And there's a beach on my left side and one on my right side. And I thought, where shall I go? I thought, well, the left beach is nicer, it's more quiet. As I walk to the left beach, suddenly God speaks into my heart and says, go to the right beach. So I stand still, I look up, I say out loud, why do I have to go to the right beach? I like the left beach more. I'm going to the left. So
Are you going with me?
Yeah. No, this I didn't say that. But I was on the water with my book, and again in my heart that I had to go to the beach on the right. So I said out loud, okay, I'll go to the other beach. So I take my stuff, I go to the...
He didn't give you peace on
No.
No,
I had to go. It was like he pulled me there. So I went to the beach on the right. And I said to God, okay, I'm looking forward. Why do you send me to the beach on the right? Or am I just hearing weird voices or whatever? So the first person I see is an Israeli woman speaking Hebrew to 2 children. So I started to speak with her. We started to talk for half an hour about a specific subject. And then she said, this morning I woke up, I prayed something, I asked God for an answer, and now you're giving me the answers. She said, you've been sent by God. And I had to laugh. It was so funny. Mashiach, Mashiach, Mashiach. Mashiach, Mashiach, Mashiach. Listen, I was in Ben Yehuda Street in Jerusalem. And like usually, okay, in my mind, sometimes I say it out loud, sometimes just in my mind, oh God, send me somebody who's looking for you. So the Sabbath just finished, so the stores open up. So I was walking, and Ben Yehuda Street, it goes down a bit. So I'm walking down towards Zion Square, and suddenly there's a man, he comes from my side, started to speak to me. I'm thinking, this is weird. He didn't say hi, whatever, just bum, his life story. And I thought, that's weird. Maybe, you know, it's sent from above. You know, he said, you want a cup of coffee? I said, okay, we'll have a cup of coffee in Jaffa Street. So he asked me all these questions about God, about his life. And I just tried to answer the way I thought I should answer it. And then I asked him, listen, you just came up to me, started to speak to me, asked me all these questions. You're twice as old as me, as if I know what to answer. Why did you approach me? And then he said, I was walking 5 meters behind you in Ben Yehuda Street. He said, I'm a believer, but I'm far away from God. But as I was walking behind you, I asked God, how can I get back to you? And then he said, God appointed you, go to this boy, and he will bring you back to me. Wow. And I was listening. I didn't know what he was saying. So and then we prayed, you know, to make a new start. Every day, every second you can make a new start, of course. I was in a guest house on the other side of the country, and there was a tour group over there, and so we met in the lobby. They were leaving, and somehow some stories came out. I can't help it. These stories just come out, you know, and they liked it. And then we said goodbye, and I don't know their names or nothing. I thought I'll never see them again. So 2 days later, I go to Jerusalem, and I had 2 things on my schedule. One, I wanted to visit some place, and I wanted to come to the Mount of Olives, where we are right now. So as I'm walking in Jaffa Street, suddenly, again, he speaks in my heart and says, go to the old city of Jerusalem, to a place that was over there. And I stand still and I look up and I say, okay, listen, I have 2 things on my schedule. I have to go that way, but not that way. But like a magnet, he pulled me there. And then I said, okay, I'm going to change my plans, and I'm I'm going to do what you say. So I walk to the place where I felt that he told me to go, looking forward who he would send me for, because it always happens, it always happens when he speaks. So I come into the lobby of this guest house, and there is one of the ladies that I saw in the guest house on the other side of the country, and I didn't know they were there. And she said, Chris, she said, you have to come with me. So I thought, what is going on? She dragged me to another room where the other people were from her group. The moment I walk into their room, their leader from their two groups, she looks at me, she said, Chris, you can ask the other women if I'm speaking the truth or not. We were trying to reach you in your guest house, but we couldn't reach you by phone. So this morning we prayed and asked God, send Chris today to our room to tell us more stories, what's happening when he's walking with God and traveling everywhere. And so it is just amazing. And really I can tell you story after story after story, but it's the most beautiful thing of all these stories. The stories are amazing, but the fact that I realized that wherever I went, I noticed that, that Jesus, he was with me. Like it's written, he is with you always. Yes. And always means good weather, bad weather, feeling good, feeling bad, whether you're in the jungle or wherever. When he says, I'm with you always, he means, yes, I'm with you always. It's just an amazing adventure, walking with God. Yeah. And Enoch walked with God, but there's almost nothing else written about him. Just this sentence, Enoch walked with God. Some people have in the Bible had entire Bible books written about him, but this was just one sentence, and I love it. And if I would be living in the time of the Bible, and I wouldn't need any books or whatever, just Chris walked with God, and that's it.
Ja, det var det vi hadde for Israel Live i dag. Jeg håper virkelig at du har blitt inspirert av historien til Chris,